Hey everyone, it's me, Terry of the Yarnjoy podcast. Today we're going to do part 3 of the Sock Monkey tutorial, okay? This is a pattern by Yarnspirations, and I will put in the description box below a link to the written pattern where you can print it or download it onto your device or print it out. Also, I will link below the for part 1 and part 2 of this tutorial. So if you hadn't seen those and you want to start this project from the beginning of the tutorial, then you can check those out. I have both the right and left-handed versions, and I will link them down below in the description box. Okay, so let's just go on and let's see. So far we are up to that we have our sock monkey created. Okay, we got the arms, legs, everything attached, the body and the head, everything weaved in. Okay, and so now we are ready to go on to the next part of the pattern, and it is to make the muzzle for the monkey. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so I'm going to take my light colored yarn, the same that I use for the feet and the hands of my sock monkey, okay? And it says for the muzzle, we're just going to do rounds 1 through 3 of the same instructions that we used for the head. Now, when we made our head, we kind of worked backwards because we worked up from the body, so we didn't have to, we worked in one piece, and so for the instructions we're going to do for the muzzle, we're actually going to go in the right direction and we're going to start with round 1 of the head instructions, and we're going to do rounds 1, 2, and 3 in this color for the muzzle. Okay, so rounds 1 for the head says to start with a magic circle. Now I'm going to do that. And again, of course, if you don't want to do the magic circle, just chain 2, work in the second chain from the hook, and then just go on from there, okay? And so in that magic circle, or that second chain from the hook, we are going to single crochet 6, okay? So I'm going to make my magic circle. Okay, now I'm going to chain up 1, and now I'm going to make my single crochet, okay, and I'm going to make 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, now I'm going to pull my beginning tail to close up my circle. Okay, pull it really snug. Okay, now going on to, and we do not join the round, we're going to work in a spiral, okay? So going on to row 2, we're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch all the way around. So at the end of the round 2, we should have 12 single crochets in our circle, okay? So if you want to use a stitch marker, you can, or you can just count, but we're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch around, okay? So I'm going to count back from where I ended off to make sure I find my first, make sure I put my hook in the very first stitch. I have 6 single crochets in this stitch, in this round, okay? So I'm going to count back. The one that my hook is above is stitch number 1 that I'm going to count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So there is the stitch I want to go into, and I'm going to do 2 single crochets into that stitch. So there's 1 and 2. Okay, now I'm going to put my stitch marker into the first of those 2 single crochets that I just made. So that tells me that is the first stitch of the round. Okay, so each of the remaining 5 stitches, I'm going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch. Okay, so I'll work on mine, and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I've just got back to the marker, and now I have a total of 12 stitches all the way around my circle. Now I'm going to go on to round 3. Round 3 says we're going to single crochet increase, and then single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so what that means is, let me take my marker out. We're going to go into that very first stitch, and we're going to do 2 stitches, 2 single crochets in that one stitch. So 1 single crochet and then 2 single crochets in that same stitch. Put our marker back, and we're going to put it in the first stitch of those 2 that we just made to mark the first of our round. Okay, now in the next stitch we're just going to do 1 single crochet. Okay, so we're going to alternate that all the way around. So in the next one we're going to do, in the next stitch, we're going to do 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, and then in the next stitch we're only going to do 1 single crochet. Okay, and the next one we're going to do 2 single crochets, and then the next one we'll do 1 single crochet. So we'll do 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 like that, and we're going to go all the way around, and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I just got back to my marker, and so now you should have 18 single crochets all the way around your stitch. Okay, around your circle, sorry. And that completes round 3 of the head instructions. So now let's go back to the muzzle instructions and see if there's anything else we're supposed to do. On the muzzle, it said for rounds 1 through 3, we do the same as 1 through 3 on the head. So we did that. And now we have rounds 4 and 5 we have to do. And for those 2 rounds, we're just going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch around. Okay, so in round 4, we're going to do 1 stitch in each stitch around, so we'll have 18 stitches still. And then in round 5 we'll do the same thing, 1 single crochet in each stitch around, and we should still have 18 stitches. Okay, so we're going to do that two times around, row 4 and 5, and just move your marker each time and put it in the first stitch of that next round. Okay, to help you keep track of your stitches or your rounds. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take my marker out, and I'm going to do 1 single crochet in that very first stitch, and then I'm going to put my marker back, and I'll put it back into that stitch we just made. That marks our first stitch. Now I'm going to just finish this round and then do the same thing for round 5, and I will meet you back when I get to the end of round 5. Okay. Okay, so I've just got finished with my round 5. I still have 18 stitches all the way around my circle, and now I'm going to take my marker out. I'm going to slip stitch into the very next stitch, which would be the first stitch of round 6, but I'm just going to slip stitch into it. Okay, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to fasten off, but you do want to leave enough, you do want to leave a pretty good sized tail, because you're going to use that to sew this muzzle onto the face of your sock monkey. Okay, so usually the way I gauge it, I put my work down. Put my hook out a little bit. I put my work down, and then I take my yarn and I just kind of loosely drape it around the project or that piece that I'm going to be stitching on to the face, around the muzzle that I'm going to stitch onto the face. Okay, so, and then I just cut my yarn. That kind of gives me an idea of how much yarn I would need. Okay, and now I'm going to, let's see, I already did my slip stitch, so now all I have to do is just pull my yarn out like that. Okay, we pull that loop out. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and take my yarn needle, and I want to go back and secure my ending tail here so I can tighten it up, and it's going to kind of help close in if there's a hole or anything showing in the center there. I'm going to go ahead and fasten that down. Okay, so this is on the inside of the work, so I'm just going to run my yarn needle under some stitches to help secure it down, just like that. Okay, and I'm not even going to worry about cutting it, because I can always use this tail as part of the stuffing. Okay, so that is the end of our muzzle. Okay, so it's ready to be sewn onto the sock monkey. So it's going to go like somewhere like this. And so when we stitch it on, we will be stitching it and then kind of stuffing it at the same time. Okay, so let's go on to the next part before we sew pieces on. The next part of the instructions says we're going to make the ears. So going on to our next part of the instructions, we're going to work on the ears, and it says to use the color that you use for the main body of your sock monkey right here. And we are going to now it says to chain 3 and then do 8 double crochets in the 3rd chain from the hook, but what I'm going to do is go ahead and do a magic circle and start that way. Magic circle, and then I will put I'll do my chain 3. Okay, so here's my magic circle. Now I'm going to do chain 3, 1 2 3, okay, and then I'm going to do my 8 double crochets into that magic circle. Okay, so we're doing double crochets now. So that's 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8. Okay, now you can go ahead and, if you want to, you could go ahead and chain 3 and then work in that first the first chain and work your 8 double crochets into that if you want to do that. Okay, but I'm gonna go ahead and do the magic circle. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and pull my tail kind of closed here, but I'm not going to connect it because I don't want this to be a circle. I want it to be a semicircle for the ears. Okay, so I just kind of tighten my ring up there like that, but see, you can see that it's not going to be a circle. Okay, because I'm not going to join. Okay, and now in row 2 it says, oh, and at the end of row 1 it does say to turn your work now. So I like to go ahead and in row 2 it says there's a chain 1 in the beginning. So when I'm going to turn my work, I would rather do the chain 1 and then turn it. It just seems like it's easier for me to do it that way. And so but that chain 1 is part of the row 2, the starting point. Okay, so now it says just to slip stitch into each stitch across. Okay, so we're just going to do a slip stitch. And you want to use kind of medium tension. Don't you know, make it real tight. This is just like the edging of the ears. Okay, so I just slip stitch in each stitch around. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and do one extra slip stitch because it kind of stops right there at the top, and then you have this edging right here that doesn't have that finish, and I think it needs that finish. So I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into that chain. Okay, and then look to see how I like it, and looks like maybe I want to do one more slip stitch in that chain, just kind of making it go around the edge of the ear. See that? Okay, I like that. Okay, so now I'm going to leave a length because I'm going to need that to sew the ear into the head of the sock monkey. Okay, not a huge amount, but you want, you know, a pretty good amount that you'll be able to sew it on securely. Okay, now I am just going to just pull my yarn out because I already did a slip stitch, so it'll be locked down well enough until we sew it in. So all I'm going to do is just pull that loop out. Okay, and kind of tighten it down. Okay, so now what I want to do is take my yarn needle, and I'm going to yarn my needle with the beginning tail. Okay, and I just want to kind of weave that in. Okay, I'm going to weave it in kind of underneath those initial stitches. Okay, and then right down the bottom there, you know, right, come out at the part that's going to be up next to the head. Okay, and then I'm just going to go up through some of those stitches again and to hide my tail. Okay, and then I'm going to cut it close to my ear, and then you can kind of stretch it a little bit to get that yarn tail worked in there. Okay, so you don't see it. Okay, so there is my first ear. Now pause the video here and go and repeat the instructions for the ear, so then you can have a second one. Okay, because you need 2 ears. I've already made my other ear here, but I need to weave in this beginning tail, and then I will be ready with my 2 ears. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and you work on creating your second ear, and then meet me back and then we'll go on from there. Okay, so I've got my 2 ears ready to be put on, so now I'm going to set those aside and go on to the next part of the instructions. On the next part of the instructions, it says to work the arms, and of course we've already done that, and so now we're going to skip those and we're going to go to the hat. Okay, so for the hat, we're going to go back to the color that we used for the arms, you know, the feet and the hands and the muzzle. Okay, so we're going to go back to that color. Take our hook. We're using the same hook throughout our whole entire project. We're using the same size hook, okay? I mean the same hook, okay? Okay, going on to the hat, it says to make a magic ring again, and so of course you can chain 2 and work in the second chain from the hook, but I'm going to make a magic ring. Make a magic ring. Okay. Chain 1. And then it says to have to do 9 half double crochets into the loop. So now we're working with half double crochets. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, now I'm going to get my beginning tail. I almost lost it there. Ooh, there it is. Okay, come on. Okay, so I pull my beginning tail to tighten up that ring, okay? Because we do want it to be it is a round, so we're going to tighten that up really good. Really well. Okay, so we should have 9 half double crochets in this first round. Okay, going on to round 2. Let's see, I'm going to see slips. Okay, so now in the hat, we are not going to do spirals. We are actually going to join each time. Okay, so I'm going to join into the top of the first half double crochet, not the chain 2, but the top of the first half double crochet, and I'm going to just join with a slip stitch, okay, to close up my circle. Okay. Okay, going on to round 2, we're going to chain 2, so 1 and 2, and then it says that this chain 2 does actually count as our first half double crochet. Okay, so now we're going to half double crochet into that same stitch that we joined into. And if we counted the chain 2 as the first half double crochet, this means that this is going to be the second half double crochet of that round. So I'm going to place my marker into the top of the chain 2, and that's going to mean that that will be the first stitch that we count. That's the first stitch of this round. Okay, so now going back to the instructions, it says that we are going to do 2 half double crochets in each of the remaining stitches all the way around. So in the beginning, at the end of round 1, we had 9 half double crochets. So at the end of this round, round 2, we're going to have 18 half double crochets. Okay, so going on to the next stitch, we will put 2 half double crochets into that stitch. Okay, and we're going to do that all the way around until we get back to our marker, okay? And so I will meet you when I get to the marker. Okay, so I've just got back to the marker. Now all I have to do now to end this round is to go ahead and join with a slip stitch into the top of that first chain 2 where my marker is, okay? So I'm going to take out my marker and I'm going to put my hook into that place I took the marker out from, okay, the top of the chain 2, and I'm going to do a slip stitch to close off my round. Okay, so now you should have a total of 18 stitches all the way around your work, your circle. Okay, going on to round 3, we're going to chain 2, so 1 and 2, and that is going to count as our first stitch. Yeah, I'm just checking on my instructions here. Okay, so that will count as our first stitch. We're going to do another half double crochet into that same stitch that we joined into. Okay, now I'm going to put my marker into the top of the chain 2, not the top of the stitch I just made, but the top of the chain 2, because that's going to be the first stitch around our circle. Okay, so the next stitch we're going to do just 1 single crochet. I mean, not single, 1 half double crochet, okay? Okay, so we're going to do 1 half double crochet into that stitch. And then the next stitch, we're going to do 2 half double crochets, 1 and 2, okay? And then in the next stitch, we're only going to do 1 half double crochet. So we will alternate that pattern, and we're going to do it all the way around. So 2 half double crochets into the next stitch, and then 1 half double crochet into the next stitch, okay? So keep doing that, and I will meet you when I get back to the marker. Okay, so I just finished round 3, and now all I have to do is join with a slip stitch, okay, and that will finish that round. So at the end of round 3, you should have 27 half double crochets around your circle now, okay? So I'm going to remove my marker, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 2 to close off my round, okay, just a slip stitch. Okay, going on to round 4, we are not going to do any increases this time. We're just going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and then we're going to do, not in the same stitch as we joined, but in the next stitch, we're going to do 1 half double crochet, okay? And we're going to do 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way around, not doing any increasing. And so at the end of this round, you should still have 27 stitches, okay? Now I'm going to put my marker into the top of that chain 2 to show me that that is the first stitch of that round. And now I'm just going to do 1 half double crochet in each stitch around, and I will meet you when I get to the marker. Okay, so I just finished round 4, and as you can see, it is starting to make like a bowl, okay? We want the right, the work that's facing you as the outer part of the hat, okay, or the bowl, okay? So all I have to do now is take out my marker, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 2, and that will close off our round. Okay, one more round and we will be finished. So now we want to chain 1, going on to round 5, chain 1, and then we're going to, okay, so now it says we're going to slip stitch in each stitch all the way around, okay? So going into the next stitch, we're going to just slip stitch. Just like that. That's going to give us an edging onto our hat, okay? So we're just going to go into each stitch, and we're just going to do a slip stitch, okay? And so I will meet you. Well, let me go ahead. I'll put my marker back into the very first slip stitch so I can see where I am supposed to join into, okay? Okay, so now I'm going to just keep doing my slip stitches all the way around until I get back to the marker, and I will meet you there. Okay, so I just finished round 5. I just slip stitched all the way around, and then I've got back to the marker, so now I'm going to take my marker out, and now I'm going to just do one final slip stitch to join that very first stitch of the round to fasten it off, okay? And now I'm going to cut my yarn, but I want to make sure that I leave, there, I've got wrinkles here. Okay, I want to make sure that I leave enough, so I'm going to tail so I can sew it onto the head. So I'm going to do the ring around the rosy thing to figure out how much of a tail I need, and so then I just add a little bit more, and then I cut that off. Okay. And now, since I did a slip stitch already, I'm just going to pull out my yarn like that, okay? Okay, so that is now ready to be sewn on to the head of the sock monkey. Okay, so let's look and see what do we got to do next. So we did the hat. Now the next part of the instructions is the finishing. And so let's go ahead and sew on the top piece of the little pom-pom dealy. It's not a pom-pom, it's just like some red yarn, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so in the instructions it says you take your red yarn, okay, and it says to cut 8 10-inch strands of that red yarn, and so I've already cut mine. So go ahead and pause the video and get your red yarn, cut 8 10-inch strands, and then I will meet you back when you're ready to go on to the next step, okay? Okay, so I have my 8 strands cut, okay, and now I'm going to take my yarn needle, and all I'm going to do before I put the 8 strands in there, I'm going to take my yarn needle and I'm going to take the beginning tail of my where my magic circle was, and then I'm going to secure that tail down so I can get it closed as much as I can. by, you know, running your needle under the stitches there just to secure it. Okay. And like I said, I'm not going to cut it. I'll just use that as part of stuffing or whatever. Yeah, as part of the stuffing. Okay, so now I should have said this in the beginning, but I didn't. But it would probably be a good idea to grab a larger hook than what we've been working with. I was using a F hook, which is 3.75 millimeter for my work, but I grabbed a 4.5 millimeter hook. Doesn't matter, just so it's a bigger hook, because I think it's going to be easier to pull all this length of all these strands of yarn when we're making the top knot on the top. Okay, so now I'm going to go, this is round 1 of the hat. You see that? This is round 1 of the hat, and so I'm going to go kind of like, I'm going to stick my yarn, this larger hook from the top, the outside, going in, okay, in that first round, okay, and then I'm going to go across that beginning hole, the very center hole. I'm going to go across to the other side, okay, and bring my hook out. Okay, so I had to take a break right there. I tried to do it with all 8 strands together, but my hook it was very difficult to try to get all the strands hooked on and pulled through these holes. So I'm going to divide this in half, and I'm going to do 4 strands, and I think that's going to work better. So let's see. Okay, so 4 strands hooked on my hook, and I'm going to pull it through those 2 holes that my hook is stuck through. And it's easier if you kind of twist your hook where the hook part is kind of facing down when it's going through those holes. And I think I can get it pulled through, yeah. And just kind of hold this kind of tight, so that way all the strands, none of them will come unhooked from the hook. Unhooked from the hook. Okay, so I've got that loop all the way through, see? So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to check under here and make sure, yes, I did catch all of them. Okay, so now I'm going to pull up this loop, okay, and I'm going to take these, in fact, I can even do it with my fingers, take the hook out, and then I'm going to go through there. I want to pull those tails through that loop. Okay. Okay, and now I'm going to tighten it up. And you can kind of pull on individual of the tails to try to get it pulled up evenly. Just work at it until you get it to where you like that knot. Okay, so that was just 4 of the strands. I'm trying to find where that one is. Let me pull each individual one. There it goes. Okay, I got it. Okay, so that is just with 4 of the strands. Now, I'm assuming you can run it through there again, maybe that same hole, and get the other 4 strands to make your knot larger. As you can hear, I hear Teddy barking outside the window. Let me pause it until he finishes barking, okay? So this is just the 4 strands, and really I think that that's probably going to be enough. So I think I'm just going to use the 4. Now you can take the other 4 and go ahead and I guess run it through those holes again, and to make your top knot larger, you could do that. Yeah, you could do that. That might work. Let me try. I'll try. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get all of them hooked onto that hook. Okay. And holding it pretty tight so they won't come loose, I'm going to head my hook down and then I'm going to try to go through that hole. Now don't hold it so tight that you can't get it pulled through. There it goes. Okay, I got it. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to separate it with my fingers, okay? And I'm going to run those strands through that loop, or pull them through, you know. Okay. Oh, I missed one. Just a minute. Come here. Okay, there you go. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to tighten this up. Let's see if I'm going to like this or not. I don't know. Let's see. So tighten it like we did the other one. Yeah, it looks okay. So I'm kind of going to, you know, pull on kind of individual strands to see, oh, see, I could tighten that one up. Get that knot tightened up as much as possible. Like I said, it doesn't matter if the tails are all uneven because we're going to trim it off. Okay, yeah, I like that. Okay, so I did use all 8 strands, but I did have to do them half, you know, 4 at a time. It was easier doing that way. Okay, now you might have been able to do 8 if you got like a really large hook, but then it'd be difficult to get the hook stuck through there. So however you want to do it is good. Okay, so I think I am going to wait before I trim this until I get the hat on the head to complete like the whole look. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I think I'm going to do that before putting the face on my sock monkey. I'm going to go ahead and sew the hat on, so that way it'll kind of help me to, because in the instructions it does not say like what round to put the muzzle or the ears or anything like that. And so I think that if I put the hat on first and get that sewed onto the head of my sock monkey, that's going to help me place the eyes and the ears. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to snug that down on the top of the head, even if you have to kind of squish the head a little bit to get that hat pushed on there. Okay, don't have to stuff the hat or anything, we just stuff the head in the hat. Okay, if you want to use some pins to help you hold the hat in place, that is fine, but I think it's pretty good of a snug fit here that I'm not going to need that. Pins. May want pins though to pin on the ears just for placement. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to head. I've got my hat, and I want to look at it and make sure I feel like it's kind of centered. You know, this top knot will run down the line, the middle line, imaginary line of the body of the sock monkey. Okay, I'm putting my beginning where I did my slip stitch where the yarn tail is coming out of. I put that in the center back. Okay, and so now I'm going to just take my yarn needle. I've already got it yarned up with the end of the tail end of the yarn, and I'm going to start stitching it on. Okay, so I'm going to go through the hat and through pick up little strands of the head as well. I'm trying to get this to look even here. Okay, so if it's too difficult to go through both thicknesses at once, you could just go ahead and go, you know, through the first stitch of the hat like that to get yourself started. And now you need to pick up strands of the head, and you know, you don't have to pick up the whole stitch. You can just pick up a few strands or pieces of strands, and you want to do that right under the edge of where the hat is sitting. Okay, and then you can either pull your yarn out there, or you can run it up through the next stitch of the hat, however is easier for you. Okay, just like that. Okay, and we're going to stitch that down. And now if you're not using pins, you may need to kind of watch the line of your hat and make sure that it's gonna be straight. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep stitching my hat on. I'm going to go through the next stitch here of the hat. See that? and then go under. Picked up some fluff there. I'm going to go under and under the edge there and pick up a few strands of the head, and then come back up through the hat. And you don't have to go through every stitch. You know, there, see, I just skipped a couple of stitches on the hat. You know, you don't have to have every stitch tacked down as you're sewing it to the head. When I'm on the hat side, I do go in the next stitch, but then when I'm coming up from the head, sometimes I'll skip over a couple of stitches when I'm coming back up through the hat. Okay, so now I need to pick up a few strands of the head and then back up through the hat. And see, I skipped a couple of stitches there. That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to do that and tack my hat down to my head, and then I will meet you back when I get finished doing that, okay? Okay, so I've made my way around the hat, tacking it down to the head, and now I'm just going to secure it at my end. So I'm going to go ahead and go back up through the hat a few different places. I'm just hiding my tail, and you can go through the head, you know, underneath there, and then up back through the hat again, just to hide my tail in there, okay? And now I'm going to use my scissors and cut it off. Cut the end off, okay? There is my hat, and if it's not completely straight, then that just adds character, I think. Okay, so now let's go on to sewing the ears on, okay? Okay, so I went ahead and got some pins out of my pin cushion. These are quilting pins, I think. It's they're longer straight pins, okay? I really like to use those when I'm pinning on pieces. Okay, so I'm going to get my ears that I made, okay? And now I'm looking at the picture just on my phone here. Whoop. Let me see. Okay, so I'm looking on the picture, and it looks to me like the ear goes, the top of the ear is just right underneath where the hat is, where the hat ends, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and pin my ears down, and I'm going to do it on either side of my head. Now this is the time, because right now the front and the back are identical. Well, no, that's not true, because we have our my starting stitch, and I can kind of see where that is, so I want to put that at the back. Okay, so I'm going to take the ears, and I'm going to pin them on either side, kind of you want to line it up with the arm, okay? And I want to pin that just into the head to help me get them placed, okay? So I want to put this edge right where the hat stops, you know, right up next to the hat. I don't know how do you say that? Okay, so I'm pinning the hat in, the ears in, right up against the edge of the hat. There you go. Okay. And then now I do want to get a little bit of a curve to the ears, okay? So I'm going to, the center part of the ear will kind of go back a little bit, and then the other edge of the ear is going to line up with where I pinned the first edge, the other end. See that? So I kind of curved it a little bit, okay, to give it a indentation into the ear like it's cupped. Okay, so now I'm going to do that with my other ear to place it same way as I did the first ear. Okay, so put it right up against the hat, and I want to do it in line with the arm and the shoulder. Get my first edge stuck down there. Okay, move my tail out of the way, and then I do want to curve it just like I did the other side to make kind of a cup. Oh, another thing you can do is you can see what row you pin the tail on, the other edge of the ear, what row it is, and then just follow that across, so then you're kind of pinning it pretty much at the same place. Okay, and then I'm going to pin that one down in line with the first one. Okay, now we want to look at them and see what that looks like. Okay, So that's about where I want to put them. See that? And going ahead and putting the ears on before we put the muzzle and the eyes, I think it really helps with placement, okay? So we put the hat on, and then now, since the ears is right up against the hat in the picture here, okay, then that's why I wanted to do that, okay? And then from there, I will probably go ahead and do the eyes, because I can kind of do in relation to where the ears are. I'll do the eyes and so on, okay? And then the muzzle, of course. Okay, so that's my plan. Okay, so I'm going to get my needle here, and I'm going to go ahead and yarn up my needle with whichever ear you want to do first. Just like that, okay? And now I'm going to secure that into the head and make sure that it's still touching the edge of the hat, okay? And then I'm just going to make a stitch down into the body and out the back there, like that, to secure that top down, okay? And now I'm going to just start taking stitches into the ear and then into the body, and usually I go from the front to the back and then the back to the front, like that, when I'm stitching these down. Okay, now I'm going to go, since I come out of the ear, I'm going to go down into the head and underneath and come out the back behind the ear, the earlobe. Like that. See that? Just tacking it down, okay? And remember, I do want to keep that bowl to the inside of the ear, and so you can help keep that shape by, depending on where you go into the head at, okay? So let me show you. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the ear part from the back to the front, since I'm in the back, to the front, okay? Like that. Picked up a straggler. Okay. Okay, now what I want to do is make sure that the ear is kind of bowled, you know, to the back, and then I'm going to go into that right below, you know, right where it meets the head. I want to go ahead, and that's where I want to do. I don't want to insert my stitch way over here, in other words. See, I want to go through into the head way back, you know, kind of further back, right where the ear is touching it, to keep that arch. See, to keep that arch, so it's not in line with like where we secure, you know, where we started, the outer rim of the ear, whatever it's called. Okay, and now I'm just going to do that all the way across. I'm going to go up through the ear again from the back, coming toward the front. Okay, and remember that I am still trying to keep that kind of a bowl shape to the ear. So I'm going to take my stitch back there further and go through the head, and then go out, come out the back again, like that. Okay, so I'm going to do that until I finish this ear. As I'm coming to this other edge, now I want to bring my stitches forward a little bit, because, you know, this edge is more forward than the middle part of the ear. Okay, just like that. Okay, now I can take my pin out of the top part because it's already secured down. Okay, and then go through the ear to the front. And this part should be even with the top edge of the lobe. Go back through the head, right close to the where I'm wanting the ear to be, to the back, like that. See? Now it's pretty secured down. I'm going to go ahead and take my pin out. And now I'm going to do one more stitch. Looks like it seems like it's pretty solid. If you want to kind of tug on it and see if you feel like the stitches are securing it well. See, this is a little bit open there, so I'm going to go ahead and secure that down with another stitch. and go down into the body or the head. And then I'm just going to come out, you know, the back somewhere. It doesn't have to be close to the ear because I'm finishing it off, see? Okay. Now I'm going to just weave in my ends by just going through that same hole and then coming out another place. Oh, another tip here is while you have this long tail, you might as well use it to have any finishing stitches that you need. If you look right there, see right there, it seems like it's kind of a gap where I can see the stuffing, sort of. I mean, you're probably going to see stuffing somewhere or other. It's not going to be perfect. But I think that that's kind of a big hole there. So I think I'm going to use this tail while I have it and go ahead and work my way underneath there and over to where that area is, kind of underneath where the opening is. Can you see the needle there? And that's going to put a thread, a strand of this same colored yarn, and I think it's going to help kind of disguise that opening. Okay, see that? Okay, so I'm going to do that again. I think go down into the body and then kind of come up underneath that. In fact, I think I'm going to go over a little bit like that, and I think that'll kind of help fill that in there. I do that a lot with my yarn tails, you know, instead of just, if I have a long tail left, I'll go ahead and look if there's somewhere close there that I might need to put some extra stitches in, either to secure the head from wobbling or you know, where there's a stitch sewed on, or if you see stuffing going through, you know, there's all different reasons why you might want to do that. I think it helps. Okay. Yeah, I like that. That helped it. Okay, look on the other side of the shoulder. That looks pretty good. So I think I'm done with this yarn tail. So now I'm going to go ahead and take, you know, go right into there and come out some other spot like that. I pull my yarn needle out and then cut the tail close to the body. And if there's a little bit sticking out, which I don't think there is, but I can always run my yarn needle underneath there close to it and kind of wiggle underneath there, and that will pull that yarn tail in. Okay, so I've got the first ear sewed on. I'm going to do the same exact thing to the second ear, and I'm going to look and see. Looks like I've got some holes there I could kind of reinforce and cover up where you can't see the stuffing. So I will do that with the remaining tail once I get my ear sewed on. I may go ahead and, yeah, I'll probably do that. Go under some of those openings there to disguise that. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and press pause and sew on this other ear, and then I will be back and we will sew on the eyes. But I'm going to go ahead and say this. I forgot to say at the beginning of this video, but you're going to need a little bit. Well, I'm going to use some black yarn, some sport weight yarn that I have, and I'm going to use that to stitch the eyes on. I think Original Sock Monkeys, yeah, because I had one when I was a little girl, and I believe back then they had buttons for the eyes, and of course those are kind of frowned upon if it's going to be something the child's going to get a hold of, because of course you don't want them choking on the buttons. So I'm going to just take some yarn and stitch the eyes in. Okay, so I'm using some number 3 you know, sport weight, so it's a smaller strand of black yarn. So if you've got some of that handy, then grab that, and then I'll meet you back up after I sew this ear on. Okay? Okay, so I got my second arm sewed on, okay, and I got the tails weaved in, okay. Now I'm going to go on to placing, trying to figure out where I'm going to put the eyes next, okay. So looking at the picture, it looks like if you go at the top of the ear and then go down about the second round maybe. So here, this is the round that the top of the ear is connected to. Okay, so I'm going to go down just one stitch. Okay, and then I'm going to go across and then put my pin somewhere in that stitch, and then I'm going to look at the hat. Looks to me like it may be down another row. I'm going to go maybe midway between those 2 stitch holes to give me a little bit more distance away from the hat. Okay, So that's where I'm kind of thinking to place my eyes. And then also now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and I want to keep it on that same line, and it looks to me like there's just a couple of stitches in between where the eyes are gonna be, you know, yeah, spacing wise. Looks like it's pretty much like that. They look like they're pretty close together. Now I can get the muzzle, and I can lay the muzzle on there. It looks like that's going to have to be, the muzzle's going to go all the way down to the neck at the bottom. Yeah, and so the eyes are really close to where the muzzle is. Let's see here. So if the muzzle's going to go here, and it's going to start way down here where the neck is, then looks to me like I'm gonna have to raise up those eyes just a smidgen. See, so they're not just setting completely on top of the muzzle. Okay, so I think that muzzle is going to take a pretty good amount of space. So I think I'm going to leave those pins in there for the eyes at the moment. And I'm going to go ahead and, instead of sewing on the eyes, I think I want to go ahead and get this muzzle secured on before I place the eyes. So I think I'm going to need to get some more pins out of my pin cushion, because I just want to kind of secure this muzzle down. Well, maybe not. Put one at the top, one at the bottom. Kind of give me an idea of where it's going to go. Okay, you do want to have a little bit of polyfill ready. I'm going to sew this on about halfway, and then I can start inserting a little stuffing under there. Okay, yeah, I think that's going to be about right. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that first. I had my yarn ready for my eyes, but I think I'm going to set that aside. That's why I'm laying it on some white paper, since I was going to use some black yarn. But I'm going to go ahead and sew this muzzle on to get it placed in the right spot. Okay, so when you pin it on there, you can put this where the yarn is coming out. I usually put it right there at the bottom, or, you know, under the bottom edge somewhere toward the bottom of the muzzle. Okay, as you can see, mine is coming out kind of the side there, but that's okay, it's still toward the bottom. And then I'm going to go ahead and go through my muzzle, and then just like I did the hat. So I'm going to go through the muzzle to get to the underside, just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up right underneath that edge of the muzzle. I want to pick up just a few strands, doesn't have to be a lot, of the body part, the face. And even if you have to take like a big stitch, because it's kind of hard to get pick up a few strands, if you have to take a bigger stitch there, you can always go back. When you're going under the muzzle, I'm going to go back about a stitch, because I feel like that was probably too far away. Just like that. Oh, almost hooked my ear. Like that, see? And then, so I'm going to do that all the way around. And try not to flatten it, because you're going to stuff this a little bit. You want it to be three-dimensional, so you don't want to push the muzzle down flat. You know, you don't want this bottom to be flared out, because you're wanting to be stuffed. Okay. So I came out from the muzzle. Now I need to pick up a strand, a little bit of, you know, a little bit of the body or the face part. Okay. And then I'm going to go up through the muzzle again. I hooked the ear again. Okay. So I'm going to work my way around to about the halfway point. I started here, so I'll probably work around to I get past the face over on this edge. You can go more than halfway, just so you can get your finger on there to, you know, put some stuffing in. Okay, so back through the muzzle, pick up a little bit of the face, you know, the strands underneath there, just like that. Okay. I want to make sure I don't want it to go up too high, because I want to have plenty of room to stitch the eyes in there. That's why I left those pins there for the eyes, so I can kind of get an idea of where they need to go. Let's see, I just came out of the face, so I need to go up through the muzzle again. Okay. And now I think I can move this pin, since it's kind of secured there. And I go back through the muzzle and pick up a little bit of the face. Okay, see, now I came out way over here. That's kind of a bigger section that I took, and so I'm going to go back. I'm kind of backtrack and go back about a stitch to go back through the muzzle, because I don't want to have, you know, big open gaps. Okay, so let me go ahead and do this again. So I'm going to go down through the muzzle. Okay, now I need to pick up some of the face. Remember, I don't want to flare, I don't want to flatten it. I don't want to flare out the muzzle too far. You know, I want it to stand up. I don't want it to be, you know, too far out on either side of the face. Okay, so let's see, how much is this open? It's open all the way to over here. I think I'll make another stitch or two before I put some stuffing in. So up through the muzzle. And then down through the muzzle and pick up a strand or two of the face. Like I said, if you end up making big stitches, that's okay. You can always kind of backtrack when you go back through the muzzle if you feel like you're going to have a gap that's not tacked down. Okay, so I think that's good. So now I need to get some stuffing here. Let's see. Yeah, here's some. Luckily, I still had some within reach. Okay, I'm definitely not going to use this much. It's just going to be a little bit. And now I'm going to go ahead and pull this other pin out, and then I'm going to, with my finger, I'm just kind of stuff that under there, and kind of fill in my, you know, stuff my muzzle little bits at a time, like that. Make sure it's, you know, you get it stuffed where the muzzle looks nice and round. Don't have to be perfect, but roundish. Okay, we can always put some more in there before we totally close it up. Now, this is a little bit more tricky, because once you have stuffing in there, you need to make sure that you don't pick up a lot of stuffing when you're putting these stitches in there, because it just kind of makes a mess. And then you have stuffing coming through your stitches and tangled in with your yarn. Okay. Come up through the body. Okay. And then up through the muzzle. Okay, and then down through the muzzle. All right, let me see how big of a hole. Maybe better put some more stuffing in there before it's completely closed. I can always use the end of, you can always use the end of your crochet hook if you need something smaller than your finger to get that stuffing in there. Because you want to get it around the bottom edge of the muzzle too. Okay, and just kind of squeeze it and do whatever you need to do to shape the muzzle to your liking. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and close up the rest of the muzzle, I think. So I got to go through the muzzle, because I'm coming out through the muzzle now, so I got to go through the muzzle and down to the through the face. Okay. See, I'm turning this in all different directions as I'm doing the stitches. Whatever's more comfortable for you to get the stitches in is totally fine. Okay, I think I'm down back to the beginning again, which is great. So I'm going to go down through the, I can feel that I've gone down through the head of the monkey, which is good. And now I'm going to come up through the muzzle somewhere on the other side. I'm just weaving my ends in now. My end, one end in. Okay. And then I think I'm going to go back across the other side. Yeah. Okay. That's good. I think we got it sewed on. Okay, so I'm going to get my scissors, cut that off. Okay. Now let's get the eyes. So now I'm going to get my black yarn and go ahead and rethread that onto my needle. Okay, now the instructions say to make French knots for the eyes, and if you're good at making French knots, by all means, I think that would look great, but I am terrible at making French knots, so I'm just going to stitch some eyes in. I'm going to attempt to make it where it's kind of an roundish type thing for eyes. We'll see. Let's see how it turns out. Okay, so I'm going to go in way over here somewhere. I can even do it toward here, back behind the ear somewhere. And I want to go, but I do want to go through one of the stitch holes. You know, I don't want to go through the middle of a stitch. I want to go through one of the stitch holes because that makes it a whole lot easier to hide the ends later. Okay, now I'm going to come up to where I've got my pin. Okay, now I want to leave some of this sticking out because that's going to be used to, I'll hide that in the body later. Okay. Okay, and now I'm going to take my pin out now that I know where my eye is going to be. And I'm, almost pulled, see, I almost pulled it through too far. Be careful there until you get your first few stitches in. So now I'm just kind of going to make a, I don't know. I don't want it to make a square, but I just want to start kind of making an eye. I don't know. Some stitches. There. Once you get your first couple of stitches in there, then you can kind of, you know, work it, making it more round. Looks like mine's going to turn out to be a square first, maybe. I don't know. Let's see. I don't want it to have angry eyes like who's that, Mr. Potato Head from Toy Story. I don't want to have angry eyes. See that? Kind of coming out with a round shape, and I'll just kind of fill in the gaps where you can still see the main color. And if these stitches are like way too small and too tedious for you to do, you can always go in where you want it and then come out somewhere else further away that makes it easier. But just make sure you come out a stitch hole so then you can go right back through there to get yourself back to where you need to be. Okay, so see, I've still got a hole there, so I'm going to go back through that stitch hole now, go back over to the eye where I need to be. See, that kind of makes it where it's not so difficult, because sometimes when you're making these really tiny stitches, it's really hard to maneuver your needle, or it is for me. Okay, so now I think that might be the last stitch I need to make. I don't know, but I'm going to come out somewhere over here. Just come out a stitch hole, okay? Don't split a stitch. So that way you can hide it in a minute. Okay. Now, see, I can still see some stitches there. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. You just kind of go around, you know, once you get a few stitches there, then you kind of work it, making it round looking as much as you can, you know. You know, kind of adjust your stitches and until you like the way it looks. And just be careful, because sometimes if you have the eye at a slant, sometimes it'll make it look like angry eyes. And so you don't want that. It's better if it's kind of a more square shape, and then you can kind of round it off by putting extra stitches around the edges. Yeah. like that. See, now I still need to go down that middle there to hide that, where I can see the tan color. Just come out, stitch holes, so that way you can go back through those same holes and you don't see any black yarn where you're not wanting to. Okay, so there's my first eye. It looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm gonna go and make my second eye. See that? Don't look too bad. Go across that edge at the top if I need to. You can kind of play with it and see how you like it. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my other eye in, and I'll do that off camera. And then what you do to secure down the ends is, well, I'll show you that. So once I finish this eye, I'll come back and then I'll show you what I do with hiding the ends, okay? So let me get the next eye done. Okay, so I finished stitching my eyes in, and I ran the tail. When I was finished, I ran it to the back of the head. Now, I almost ran out of yarn, and so I'm not going to be able to do what I normally do, but it'll be fine. What I'm going to do, what you can do, if you have enough tail, when you run that yarn back through, you would ordinarily come out the same stitch hole as where your first strand is, and then you can tie them in like a double knot, and then use your needle just like when you're gonna hide your yarn. Okay, you would tie them in a knot and then use your needle, go underneath, you know, somewhere else close to it, and then just kind of wiggle that yarn around there, trying to wiggle the needle, sorry, underneath there until you can pull that tail. There it goes, see? Pull it into the body like that. Okay, so I'm going to do that with both of these. It's fine that I didn't knot it together, but if it would have been longer, I would have done that. Okay, see, I'm just hiding it on the inside. Okay, so we are almost finished with our sock monkey. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take the paper away since we're not going to use black anymore. Now we need to stitch on a mouth onto our sock monkey. Okay, so I'm going to get a long strand of my red. You know, you want to make multiple stitches, so you want it pretty long. And yarn up my needle here. Okay. And now I'm going to look at you can refer to the picture of the pattern again to see how they have the mouth done. Okay. Let's see if I'm going to look in the instructions and see what it says about the mouth. I don't think it says a whole lot. Let's see. Embroidery mouth with color C, which is the red, and make 6 satin stitches across the muzzle. So see, it doesn't tell you exactly where to do it. If you look at the picture, you can kind of see that it comes out the side of the muzzle, and it kind of just goes across. It doesn't, you can kind of curve it into a smile just a little bit, but really it just kind of goes straight across. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through another area just to get my yarn in there, okay, and I'm going through a stitch hole, okay, so that way I can pull that yarn through and not having trouble with it showing. And then I'm going to go across to the other side for where I want my mouth to start. It looks like it's like one row up from the bottom. So let's see, get across here. See, about one row up from where we sewed it onto the stitch. I don't know. You can always get the end of the mouth, the end of the yarn, and kind of lay it on there about where you think your stitches are going to start, and then go across and see if you actually want to go that far across. It would be like this. See, it's like way over here. I don't know. Well, I guess so. I guess it'd be okay. You can kind of see how far you want it by just laying it on there. Okay, so I guess I'll do that. Okay, so I'm going to pull that up through the muzzle. Got to be careful here because you may end up pulling stuffing up through the hole from what you used to stuff the muzzle with. Sometimes that happens, so You just do the best you can, okay? Because you can always kind of pull it and trim that if you need to later. Okay, so I'm going to leave a tail because that is what I'm going to use to hide my tail in, okay, when I finish. So I'm going to drape this across from where I want it. Let's see, about even probably on both sides. Kind of goes across the middle of the mouth, not the mouth, the starting circle. And then you're going to go in, and then you're going to come out the same hole that you came out of on that side for the first stitch. You want to come out through that same hole like that, okay? And then pull it in until it's kind of tight, not real tight, because you want to have a kind of a curve to it, so then he looks like he's smiling, but you want it, you know, fairly snug, okay? And then you're just going to go and do that again. And it says to put 6 stitches. You can just really put as many as you want. You know, if you get 4 in there, and you're going to go through that same stitch hole, 4 in there, and you think that's the mouth is thick enough, then that's fine. You're coming out. See, you're coming out the same holes. You're using the same holes. Okay. Be careful when you pull it across. You don't want to pull it too tight. Now you do want enough stitches that you're not going to see like a gap like this, because that's not how the traditional, that's not how the picture is. Now if you want one with an open mouth like that, I guess you could do it that way. Okay, and so you can hold it down with your thumb, but you're going through the same stitches, same stitch holes. Oops. See, I pulled that too tight, and it kind of went above where I want it. So I'm going to pull this up a little bit to loosen it. I'm going to put it there where I want it to lay. Just be careful when you're pulling you're pulling it through. Okay. And you kind of go over where the gaps are. I'm losing count. I think that was 4 stitches. Okay, so get it through, and then before you get it all the way through, just be careful when you're pulling it, because you don't want to pull it too tight. But you want it to be even. You don't want it to be like one strand, you know, sticking up higher than the other ones or whatever. I don't think, anyway. Okay, so let's see. I think I need some more at the bottom here to make that mouth look kind of curved, and so the next time I make my stitch, going through the same stitch holes and back through the same stitch holes like that, but before I pull it tight, I'm going to kind of watch this one and kind of place it where I'm wanting it, instead of it just landing on top of the pile, you know. See, I put it where it's underneath. Okay, and then the next one I'll do that too, and build it where it's underneath, to kind of make a curve to the mouth. Okay, let me see. Do one more stitch and see if that's good. Well, actually I can just hold it and see if I think that's a good amount of stitches. I think so. I think that'd be fine. Okay, so go ahead and pull that through. Oh. Sorry, it's my husband making noises in there. I think that was kind of a yawn. Okay. There, yeah, I like that. Okay. So you can kind of place them and kind of curve them a little bit into a smile. I like that. Okay. So now I'm going to just hide my tails in there. So I'm going to go into that same stitch holes I've been using, but I'm just going to come out. Actually, I could come out the same stitch hole where this tail is coming out of. So then I can show you that knotting technique. So I'm going to go through that same stitch hole. Okay. Nope, this one. Okay. Oh, well, and I'll probably have to thread my needle again. Maybe not. Let me see. Okay, so I'm going to make a knot with the 2 ends. Pull it really tight because you want the knot to be small. Make a double knot. Okay, now I'm hoping this is going to work. Cut them short. Okay. Run my needle next to, close to it, underneath into the muzzle, in other words, and then wiggle that knot, wiggle this needle where that knot is, and start pulling that, to pull that knot into the muzzle. If you need to move your needle into other areas, that's fine. Okay, and then you can use the head of the needle. There it goes. Yay, it worked. Then you poke it in there. Okay. Oh, sorry, I think I moved the camera. Sorry about that. Okay. Now I don't want to see that red. There. Here, that looks good. Look at there. Okay, so now we have one more thing to do, is we're going to finally go ahead and trim our top knot on our monkey here. Now you want to trim it short enough where all these strands are sticking up, okay? So that's going to be trimming quite a bit off. Now you don't have to do it all at once. Trim it kind of conservatively, all the way across. Well, got one of them. I missed one. Was stubborn. Okay, so look at that. It's still, it's still a little bit high. Yeah, it's definitely high. So go back through and trim it shorter, because I want them to stand up. Oops, I missed another one. Okay, so how's that? Oh, I like that, I think. Okay, so let's see. Let me measure that. I'm curious. I have a tape measure here. I have to open the drawer. I have a ruler. Let's see. I'm just curious as to see how long that is. What do you think? Half an inch? Oh, about an inch. Ish. But it doesn't matter, just however you like it. I just kind of trimmed it where I knew that it was going to stand up. Oh, it's so cute. Okay, so there is the sock monkey. Now it's more like a sock ape, I would suppose, because it doesn't have a tail. The pattern doesn't call for a tail. But if you want a tail, go ahead and make another one like the arm. But remember, the arm, let me look in the instructions here. The arm was it 12 around? Yeah, it was 12 stitches around. So maybe make it just like the tail. Just like the arm, and you would change colors, because I think the tip of the tail was white also. I'm trying to remember my sock monkey. I wish I still had him. Or you could make it a solid colors like this. But I would maybe make it smaller, like maybe 10 stitches around. Maybe, or even 8 stitches around, depending on how skinny you want it. And then you would just, you could even pinch the top like we did the arms, and then you could sew it here in the back wherever you feel like his tail should come out. But I'm going to leave it like this because that's how the pattern is. Oh, he's so cute. Okay, so there is the sock monkey. So thank you so much for going along with me and making this. I got some feedback that I knew that told me, comments that said there were some people that doing this and going to do it for presents, Christmas presents for some of their grandkids and different people, and I think that's awesome. So thank you so much for following this tutorial, and stick around, subscribe to my channel, and be looking for more tutorials in the future and episodes of Yarnjoy podcast showing you other things that I am working on. Okay, thanks guys. Have a wonderful evening. Well, if it's evening here. Have a wonderful day, evening, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.